And greetings. Welcome to today's overtime. Except it's not overtime. It's the Daily Show.
Yeah, we were just talking about overtime.
Yeah, we were just talking about the overtime.
You're 50 now.
I know.
Also lets you hanging out to dry there at the very beginning. You might have heard Steve clearing his throat. Your microphone is on. Just a rousing start on this Tuesday.
The good thing is we're not live, so we can just go back and do this again, right?
We'll do it live.
We did it live, and you heard that. And you heard the fact that we barely sound like, or at least me anyway, we barely sound like we're alive. So let's try it again. Rewind, play. Greetings. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on BlazeTV radio and podcast. Steve Deace here with Todders and Aaron McIntyre and half of my brain. Hopefully that'll be good enough.
Didn't you get enough pumpkin spice this morning? What's the deal?
Maybe I got too much. I did have a little bit of pumpkin spice Special K for breakfast this morning, man. That cereal is the bomb, by the way. That is some really good stuff. All right, so coming up on today's program, we are going to discuss, for fake news or not, we're going to kick it old school, man. I have gone back into the Wayback Machine, and I have compiled a list of clips.
Yeah, you were frisky.
I was. We've got a full segment of fake news or not this week. I've got a gauntlet of clips. We haven't done it this way very much here in the last several months, but this is the way we did it every single week, for several years. We are going to go all the way through these clips that cover the gamut of subjects and find out from you guys, do you think it is fake news or not? And when I say there's a gamut of subjects, all right, that there's a cornucopia of subjects. There's a pretty diverse array of subjects. How many more adjectives and words could I throw in there, do you think? Should I keep trying? All right. There is a smorgasbord of topics and clips with topics we're going to get to. So looking very much forward to that conversation. Also, we are going to be joined at the bottom of the hour by Tracy Beanz. She has done a lot, or is it Beanz? I think it's Beanz, right?
I thought so.
I think it is. Double check that, Aaron, will you?
Sure.
She has done a lot of great work analyzing the Missouri v. Biden free speech case involving the government and COVID and its response and, NIH and NAID and Anthony Fauci. And there was a ruling in federal court on the appeal last week. On purpose, I have not commented on it publicly because I haven't had time. It was a very extensive ruling, so I didn't have time to read it myself. And people whose opinions I respect had pretty varied opinions on the ruling and how good it was. Everybody agreed it was some form of good for our side, but there was some pretty dramatic disagreement about how good it really was. So we're going to get into that with Tracy coming up here at the bottom of the hour. And then for Pop Culture Tuesday, I didn't put on the sheet what we're going to talk about because it's kind of personal and I just want to hit you guys with something and I want you guys to tell me if I'm overreacting or if I'm correct.
On the same day you publicly stated that you had pumpkin spice Special K.
Yes.
Not sure I'm looking forward to this.
Pumpkin spice Special K is legit, by the way. All the pumpkin spice cereals are good. The pumpkin spice Frosted Flakes, the pumpkin spice Cheerios. I would love to do the pumpkin spice Frosted Mini Wheats, but I think my wife might leave me if I do because what that stuff does to my system, I can't eat it anymore, if you catch my drift. All right?
We're just going to all the places.
Yeah, it's
a wonderful Xanadu.
It's 4 after the hour, and it's already going to be that kind of a day. So let's get it started with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away brought to you by Punching Back. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy weighed in on the GOP primary on Fox News.
I think he will be the nominee. And the thing is, President Trump is stronger today than he was in 2016 or 2020. I served with Ron DeSantis. He's not at the same level as President Trump by any shape or form. He would not have gotten elected without President Trump's endorsement.
DeSantis responded.
Well, sure. I mean, I think, I ran 16 points better than Trump in Florida. I won the greatest victory that's ever been won by a Republican in the history of governor's races. We were supposed to have a red wave in 2022. That crashed and burned around the country. Florida, we did. We delivered them 4 additional Republican congressmen that was instrumental in getting them the bare majority that they have. And I'd also say, since Kevin's been in Congress, they've added trillions and trillions of dollars to the debt, even when we had unified Republican government. Since I've been governor of Florida, we've actually paid down almost 25% of our total state debt.
Additionally, DeSantis went on Radio Iowa and hit Trump for his comments on baby killing.
Former President Trump said during an interview with NBC's Meet the Press that the 6-week abortion ban you signed was a terrible mistake. What do you make of that statement?
Protecting babies with heartbeats is not terrible. Donald Trump may think it's terrible. I think protecting babies with heartbeats is noble and just, and I'm proud to have signed the heartbeat bill in Florida.
Late last week, a jury in Washington, D.C. convicted 3 more pro-lifers on charges. They blocked entrances to a baby-killing facility, 2 of whom were women in their 70s. U.S. District Court Judge Colleen Kohler-Cotelli immediately ordered all 3 defendants into custody. They face up to 11 years in prison and hefty fines. The interstate man of mystery, Ray Epps, has finally been charged with a single count related to his conduct on January 6th. He's being hit with a disorderly conduct charge. Joe Biden spoke to the United Nations this morning.
Simply put, the 21st century results are badly needed. They're needed to move us along. Let me be clear. Certain principles of our international system are sacrosanct.
John Fetterman, your thoughts?
You know, like I truly, I was very proud of my colleagues, you know, because they're really about governance. That's what it is. And on the other, the House, the whatever they call themselves, Team America or whatever they call themselves, I just like, bring your vote. You know, otherwise, you know, they need to go hump a different leg.
Some good news. Stock prices for Moderna and Pfizer have started to fall with the expectations for weak demand of the all-new COVID jab formulation. And finally, Tim Scott took his girlfriend from another school on a date in Iowa. He tweeted out this picture from a McDonald's with his girlfriend with the caption, "Got a little hungry on the road in Iowa. Good thing I spotted the Golden Arches." He's normal. He's just like you and me. And that's what happened while we were away.
Or Tim Scott.
Tim Scott's girlfriend from another school versus John Fetterman's cognitive ability. Who you got?
Tim Scott's girlfriend from another school.
Do you?
Yep.
Think that's more real?
Yep.
No, I think I'm going with Fetterman's cognitive ability. I am.
It's close.
By the way, speaking of beards, see what I did there?
I did.
Yeah. What happened to Fetterman's? The dude has had a porn stash, a goatee, and in like the last 24 hours. Have you guys seen these pictures?
Yeah, one of those pictures is from 2022. It's really confusing why that Michigander who tweeted out that photo used one from 2022. I don't quite understand. But he's wearing the same hoodie as he was last year.
That could be it. That could be it. He hasn't changed hoodies.
The exact same one.
He hasn't changed hoodies. All right. Aaron's Montage brought to you by our friends over at Eden Pure. If you've got odors in your home you just can't get rid of, now you can get rid of any stinky odor with the Eden Pure Thunderstorm Air Purifier. It gets rid of strong odors from cooking, cigarette smoke, litter boxes, trash cans, even that mildew stain from basements are no match because it doesn't cleanse the air or it doesn't freshen the air. It cleanses the air. Within seconds, it works to remove and cleanse the air in that room of any odor. Plus, there's no costly filters to ever replace. And with over 350,000 thunderstorms already sold and thousands of 5-star reviews, you know it's going to work. And there have been a ton of 5-star reviews from within our audience as well. So right now, save $200 on the 3-pack for whole home protection. That's 3 units for under $200. Just go to EdenPureDeals.com, enter the discount code Steve, and you'll get free shipping as well. Discount code Steve for all 3 units for under $200 at EdenPureDeals.com. Discount code Steve. We're going to talk about the tanking stock prices for Moderna and Pfizer and what that may mean. And how the regime may respond. We will get into that today in the overtime. That conversation will be held for Blaze TV subscribers at blazetv.com/Deace, blazetv.com/Deace, DEACE. And if you're not yet a Blaze TV subscriber, you can go there and become one for just $10 a month. blazetv.com/Deace. All right, let's get to what is in the montage for Aaron today. And I want to start with the Ray Epps thing. What you're seeing, I would call this is Operation Fig Leaf. All right, somebody just tweeted at me right before we went on the air. Hey, we've been asking who is Ray Epps for 2 years. Right? He's one of the few people we have on camera, both the night before and the day of, urging people to act and go into the Capitol. And yet, he's the one that has not been charged this entire time. Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't he allowed to give confidential testimony to the January 6th committee too, as well? So that has prompted an obvious question for the last 2 years. Who is Ray Epps? I think it was Senator Cruz asked Christopher Wray about him at a hearing several months ago, and he basically had no comment.
Our good friend Rachel Semmel's hard work at coffee shops across D.C.
Yes, where she goes in there and orders stuff for Ray Epps. So Rachel, they have to page Ray Epps.
You finally succeeded.
Yes. All right, Ray Epps, your latte's ready. Get your pumpkin spice latte. All right, so on the heels of Hunter Biden is going to be charged, and he's even suing the IRS, okay? These two events, in my view, are correlated together. What is the new evidence that they're now charging Ray Epps, albeit with a misdemeanor, that they could have charged him with all along? Why are they doing it now? It's very simple. Biden's polling numbers are dropping. That's why they're doing it now. So Operation Fig Leaf has been put into motion. Operation Fig Leaf. All right, which is to cover our shameful nakedness with the thinnest cloth possible to make it look as if there is some level of self-awareness happening. But make no mistake, there isn't. And so the game that's being played here, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, is let us charge Hunter Biden and Ray Epps with what is, in the grand scheme of things, given what they are embroiled in. Like, we don't know the full extent of Ray Epps' involvement in January 6th. That's why we're asking questions. And it just seems for a gulag called a grand jury in D.C., anxious to put grandmothers away for 6 months to 3 years for walking through the halls of Congress after security invited them in. It would just seem when a guy, particularly a straight white male, mind you, is on camera saying, go into the Capitol, has texts to people saying, yeah, I was involved in getting people riled up. I mean, it would just seem like we'd given the zealousness being demonstrated with others. There's a bunch of boomer grandmas right now whose lives they can't wait to ruin. And yet here's a straight white male, everybody's favorite villain in America named Ray Epps, that they just couldn't be bothered for 2 years to, tell us anything about or legally pursue. When we've got more prima facie evidence, given their definition of insurrection, there is far more prima facie evidence that Ray Epps, given what we've seen on camera, would meet their definition than many of the people that we have seen them, just leave indefinitely detained or completely wreck their lives. Now, with Hunter Biden, it is different. We don't just have prima facie evidence, meaning the suggestion of something that just doesn't smell right. We have the evidence. Okay, he cataloged it. I mean, these people created a 3-year narrative that Donald Trump was a Russian asset because he had engaged in water sports with Russian hookers and therefore was compromised by Putin and was therefore, again, now a Russian agent. When it turns out they actually had the right narrative. Wrong person. That's Hunter Biden. Now, we don't know about water sports. We do know that he was doing cocaine off of hookers' asses, Russian hookers' asses. We do know that. There's literal video of it. You have seen more video of Hunter Biden's junk than you have seen of Jeffrey Epstein's cell. You have seen more evidence that Hunter Biden is compromised by a battalion of foreign hookers than you have seen any of the trial data from Pfizer and Moderna. So we have literal evidence there. I mean, he kept the record for us. He kept his own ledger. It's like that scene in The Untouchables where they come up with Al Capone's handwritten ledger to charge him with tax evasion. He literally chronicled it for us. It was all over his computer, all over his phone. We have all that evidence. But yet, what is it? I saw Julie Kelly say today, 8 pro-lifers have now been convicted by federal grand juries. We have the lawfare against Donald Trump that is ongoing. What's happening with John Eastman? So this is Operation Fig Leaf, men. This is Biden's polls are dropping, and so clearly our duplicity and lawfare has penetrated through to the low information voter out there. And so we need to offer them something. We need to show them that this is not a weaponization of government against our enemies. It is. But we need something to show the low information morons that, no, this is a sincere and earnest seeking of justice. So the hope is, and frankly, there is sadly ample evidence that they will realize this hope. Their hope is we're just going to have chyrons on cable news and showing up on people's social media feeds. Hunter Biden charged. Ray Epps arrested. And they won't bother to read the details. Ray Epps arrested because he had jaywalked across K Street in D.C. or whatever they're going after him for. Hunter Biden on a gun charge and a tax charge, not, being an unregistered foreign agent who was the conduit for his father to be compromised as a foreign asset. And put on tape hours of blackmail material with hookers, several of them of a Russian origin, that could be used against the president's son in a actual blackmail scheme from Putin anytime he wanted. Not for any of that. But the hope is people won't even read. They won't go below the fold, right? They won't look beyond the chyron. They'll just say, oh, okay, yeah, they're doing their job. Yeah, they got, Hunter Biden too. Okay, cool. I don't like Trump anyway, so do whatever you want to him. Cool, we're good. We're being fair. It's not a witch hunt. You guys are seeking justice. Appreciate that. And since they got a lot of people to participate in the largest ongoing human onboarding trial experiment in the history of our species, I guess I can't kind of blame them for thinking that that's probably going to work again. But that's exactly what I think is happening. This is Operation Fig Leaf. Your thoughts, gentlemen?
It's like, you use the term they. Who's the they? How orchestrated, how coordinated is it? Because right at the end there, you may have as been speaking like Hal 2000, 3000. Who is he? Hello, Dave. Are we just being run by an algorithm now? Is that what the deep state is? If we're that easily programmed, if the Ray Epps factor now has reached whatever after years of this, because really, emotionally, these people love getting away with rubbing on our face and the fact that they have a double standard like this. What is the math and who's doing it that this is suddenly necessary? That's what the game is now so plain to me. Is nobody interested in who the they is?
Todd, asking those types of questions will get you a knock on the door at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Yes. You mean the they that were the president, the sworn-in president of these United States says things like, they told me not to answer any questions. They told me not to talk about that. They told me not to call on you.
We just saw him.
They told me I couldn't discuss that.
At the UN, drooling into his bib.
Yes.
He's not the they.
Clearly.
Who's the they?
Clearly.
I think when you talk about the system, the group of elites who truly run things, who have control over the major institutions and culture and politics, they are, and we've talked about this numerous occasions, they are totally given over to the spirit of the age, some of whom may be under direct demonic influence. it is very much like the Borg. They don't necessarily have to go, hey, send a text message or an email or go meet at a clandestine location. They are all programmed the exact same way. So what may appear as intricate coordination is actually just a bunch of individuals programmed the exact same way, and it has the same effect. But on Ray Epps, similar to how I've made the claim on numerous occasions that 2020, the only loose end for the spirit of the age, the system, was losing the moral high ground with the BLM riots.
One of the best points you've ever made on this show.
And so they had to tie up that loose end by, in some cases, instigating or allowing a riot to happen at the U.S. Capitol, and to use that to push their narrative. Well, there is still one hanging chad, if you will, from that, and that was one Ray Epps. So they're doing to Ray Epps, or they're doing with Ray Epps what they did to the BLM riots. They're tying up loose ends. And I think the Epps lawsuit against Tucker Carlson is another one of those things as well. Because I'm guessing they'll settle, and that gives the system the talking point, well, you know, yeah, he didn't win his lawsuit against Tucker Carlson, but why would you settle? Why would you settle if, you know, Tucker Carlson's claims that he's a federal agent, you know, were not true? So I think this is just another indication.
I'm glad you invoked the Tucker lawsuit from Ray Epps, because I had forgotten about that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the key points of contention that because of the questions Tucker was raising, if I remember right, because of the questions Tucker was raising, he was going to cause the feds to charge him? Wasn't that one of the arguments that was being made?
Yeah.
All right, so, and I remember we discussed it at the time, asking, your complaint is that he may raise evidence that would cause the feds to charge you. How is that grounds for a lawsuit?
That's journalism.
Yes.
It's
what's
Woodward and Bernstein, dummy.
Yes. It would seem to me then your issue would really be with the feds charging you and whether their charges are true or not.
Is the they we're talking about, do they have any, could this possibly have anything to do with anybody getting close enough that they get exposed? Or do they care about that at all?
No, I don't think they care about that at all. I mean, these institutions, see, this is one of the foundational arguments of this primary. And there are very good people on both sides of this argument that have very good reasons for why they're on this side of one side or the other. All right, and that comes down to Trump is the agent. We are beyond just good governance. This thing is not redeemable on any level. And Trump is the agent that will expose that to people. And so that exposure will create a critical mass where the people will rise up and demand better or more. And that argument, by the way, that's the central Trump argument in this election cycle. That's why a lot of times, except for the down power line, he has stepped on the abortion issue now, where everybody's coming out basically. You know, except for the absolute paid grifters, everybody, including a lot of pro-Trump pundits now, are coming out to say, no, we're not doing that. Okay. But that's why there hasn't been a lot of issue-based vetting in this process, because because the argument for Trump in this cycle isn't centered on issues. It's centered on what the symbol that you believe he represents. And I understand why people believe that he represents that symbol, because he does. All right. The other argument is that, and this is the argument that I agree with. The other argument is these systems have already been exposed. The idea that there is some level of American drunken comfort who will, because of what's happening to Donald Trump, put aside what they will allow government to do to them and stand up and say, well, now that you're doing it to this billionaire that I probably don't like, that's a bridge too far and something must be done. And I don't believe in that argument. I believe in that argument. I don't believe in the other one. And let me make sure. And when we all get competitive, we all do. Anybody who's known me for 10 minutes will tell you I'm one of the most competitive people you will ever meet. I have to come up with ways to find something to compete with to keep me motivated. You guys know this from working with me. I need a villain. I need an enemy. I need a villain. I need an objective. I get lazy. So, I mean, I look for things to compete with. So we all get emotional and we all get competitive in this primary and we all want our guy to win. And I'm as guilty of that as anybody, right? But both of these arguments I believe in to some extent. I absolutely believe Donald Trump is a symbol that exposes all of this. We have seen this. We've lived through it. I don't know how I could believe anything else. It would be like asking me to deny gravity. It would be like asking me to deny the laws of motion. We've lived through all of this. Where I part with that group, who most of my career, if you would look at who I'd mostly be aligned with, it would actually be the people in that group, typically. This is where I go back to the 2022 election. If there was ever an election where that would have paid itself off, it would have been that last midterm. Did it pay off?
No.
No. It paid off in one place. Where did it pay off?
Florida.
Florida. What happened there?
Results.
So results. So I have to look, if you want to win a game, you can decide as a coach, my way of playing football, I think is best. And there chances are if you're very successful, Nick Saban learned this last weekend. Blamed a loss on one guy and benched him. Played the other two guys and they sucked and nearly lost to a team that probably doesn't have one kid on the roster that Alabama would owe a scholarship to. And so what is Nick Saban doing this week? Going right back to the quarterback that he benched. And I'm supposed Nick Saban could look at what happened against South Florida and say, well, I've won all these championships. So my way is always the best way, regardless of this crappy film I'm looking at and the evidence that neither of the other two quarterbacks I put in are capable of playing, either yet or at all at this level. Or he could look at that evidence and react to it and then, do what it will take to win the game, not win it the way he wants to win it, but just want to win it. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I don't believe Donald Trump is a rallyable figure. I don't. I just don't. And I don't really see any evidence to the contrary. Any hard evidence. I do think the next election's more winnable for Trump as it currently stands than it was 6 months ago, but that is a product of what is happening with Joe Biden. Donald Trump's favorables aren't moving. They're not improving. That's a product of Biden. And if you're banking on Biden's unfavorables to win this next election, I just have a hard time believing the Democrats are going to do 3 years of Russian collusion, 2 fake impeachments, put us through, COVID mandates and everything else. And then they're going to say, all right, next October, let's hope Joe Biden doesn't fall down the stairs in Air Force One again and pull this whole thing off. Maybe they will. I just have a hard time believing that. And so I look at results. That's all I care about is data. That's all I care about. And the best data are results, the actual results. Not projections of results, but the results themselves. We had one place where we were able to have a referendum on them, and that was Florida. Everywhere else in America, we were unable to have a referendum on them. I don't believe Donald Trump is a figure people will rally around to be the object of their referendum. I just don't. Not in mass, and not in any critical mass. Now, if he wins this primary, he damn well better be, and I better be wrong. Because we're getting to the point people can't afford cars and houses. You make a good living. You couldn't sell your house to move into the neighborhood you wanted to.
Right.
I know you make a good living. I pay you. So if you can't with the living you're making, what about the average American that's not making what you're making?
Right.
So he better win. I just don't think he can. I don't think he's a rallyable figure. The other guy cracked some code. Now, I'm not entirely sure what the code is. I think it's results, ultimately, that if you govern well, people will reward you. I would prefer that if we exposed all this rot, there would be the massive uprising of the people. Did they uprise when they made them mask their kids?
No.
Did they uprise when they made them take a poison to keep their jobs?
The opposite.
So tell me, did they uprise when they stole an election from them?
No.
Did they uprise when there's an invasion of the southern border?
No.
Then tell me when this uprising will happen, because I just don't see the evidence of it. For a decade now, Patriot Mobile has been at the vanguard of helping to build the parallel economy that we need. Thankfully, they have made it happen with a product that all of us need to have access to nowadays and utilize, and that's our mobile phones. So sign up, make the switch today. I know what you're thinking, man, we put it off for years. I mean, years went by. I read Patriot Mobile's reads, and I'm just like, man, it's going to be a hassle to make this switch. Then one day, T-Mobile, whom we had been with for 20 years, informed us that they're going to start censoring text messages on COVID if they find you guilty of, quote, misinformation. And I mean, 5 minutes after I got that, it was just like the dam broke. I got to stop being lazy. I made the call to Patriot Mobile 5 minutes later. And then I braced myself thinking, all right, this is going to be a hassle. We've got kids with phones and everything else. And I couldn't believe how seamless they made it. And then it was kind of like those ads, those insurance ads with Aaron Rodgers, where I thought maybe I got the Blaze host who's endorsing you kind of red carpet treatment. And I just found out from so many of you in my inbox that they did the great seamless switch for you as well. An outstanding customer service team, U.S. based. What does that mean? It means you can understand them. They are America's only American mobile phone provider left. If you're a veteran or first responder and you want to make the switch, let them know. They have extra ways of saying thank you for your service if you do. For the rest of us, you can get a free activation today when you use the offer code STEVE. Make that switch today and get a free activation with the offer code STEVE at patriotmobile.com/Steve. Again, patriotmobile.com/Steve. Or you can call them at 878-PATRIOT. That's 878-PATRIOT. Tracy Beanz is editor-in-chief of UncoverDC and UncoverDC.com. She joins us here today on Blaze TV. Tracy, it's a pleasure to have you with us for the first time. How are you?
I'm well. It's good to be here, Steve. Thanks.
So for people that may not know, let's start with just a little bit of background on you and UncoverDC and what you guys do.
We're investigative journalism, none of the fluff stuff, pretty in-depth, real journalism being done at UncoverDC. I started out, writing op-eds, and people would say we can't talk about that or we won't publish this. And I said, you know what, forget this noise. I'm doing it myself, and started UncoverDC so that I'd be able to do actual journalism without making anyone angry, talking about COVID, talking about the shot, talking about, controversial topics. And here we are, 3 or 4 years later. So
excellent. So in other words, people like you and the great work you did are why people like me now are getting censored constantly. So thank you. That's basically what happened. Right?
You're welcome.
People like you did all the work. People like me put you guys on our shows to highlight your work. And that's why we're all now getting censored. All right. So let's go to Missouri v. Biden. And I could not resist. It was a very cold, snowy January evening here in Des Moines, Iowa, that I spent several hours reading the 8 hours of testimony in his deposition, all of it, that Anthony Fauci gave to the former Missouri Attorney General. I even singled out excerpts. I kept it for posterity, should they be needed later. And so this case went to the Fifth Circuit, I believe it was, for the appeal.
Yes,
correct?
the Fifth Circuit.
And I've not analyzed it yet because I just didn't have time to read the ruling myself. And several people whose opinions I respect had some contrary takes on. Everybody agreed it was some form of positive, but just how positive it was. And the most exhaustive analysis of it that I saw came from you. And so that's why I wanted to get you on our show. How big of a win against COVID stand and for free speech was this ruling from the Fifth Circuit really?
It was a relatively large win. I gave it a 70-30. Assuming that your audience is up to date because they're so brilliant on all of this stuff. The issue here for me personally was that the Fifth Circuit failed to include CISA in their injunction. And if you know anything about CISA, it's kind of the tentacle. They ran what I call censorship help desk, Steve, where they would pull everybody's posts together and then send them off to the social media companies and say, hey, this is against your terms, or this is mis or disinformation, in our opinion. You need to take it down. And the Fifth Circuit said, well, they did all that, but they didn't coerce or significantly encourage the platforms in the evidence that we've seen so far. So we're not going to include them in the injunction. Instead, they included the CDC, the Surgeon General, the White House, who was particularly egregious with their censorship demands, and left out CISA. So that was the downside for me. No CISA included in the injunction.
So then let's talk about the upside. Whoops. Let's talk about the upside. What was the upside there? What's the 70?
Well, there's a lot of upside. For example, the Fifth Circuit set a lot of precedent here. For the first time ever, we learned that self-censorship, or we had codified that self-censorship on a platform for fear of censorship is actually an abridgment of your First Amendment right to free speech.
All right, let's pause right there. Let's hit that pause button right there. That is, by an order of magnitude, that's half of the battle right there. It is the idea of what I know to be true that I will not say on your platform because of how you will react to that truth. So you have caused me to censor myself before I even confront you and your censors. That's the most damaging censorship of them all in this era in which we live. And so to get that precedent codified, that in and of itself, meets the constitutional standard of censorship, I think that's momentous, actually.
It is momentous. It absolutely is. This is the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals saying it. It's not a district court that said that, even though, I'd argue Terry Doty in the district court really, really went whole hog on the censorship apparatus with his first injunction on the 4th of July. That was huge. Another thing was, the government's always arguing, well, these people are back. They're reinstated on X, and we're not really talking about COVID anymore, and they're not going to have any future harm. The court said, actually, by the mere fact that they exist on these platforms, they have future harm because you've shown the propensity to go after people on these platforms. If they weren't there, they wouldn't have any risk. So of course there's future harm potential. And that's, the criteria for a temporary injunction. Everybody has to understand how unprecedented this is in general. There are certain plaintiffs in this case, the state of Missouri, the state of Louisiana, some individual plaintiffs, many of whom you've interviewed, Steve. And they're saying this does not only apply to them. There's no way to exclude these folks only and have the platforms only do this injunctive measure for these people, because it affects literally everybody in this country. So they broadened it out to represent the entire country. But just think, if you're someone who's self-censoring on any platform, what you have in your arsenal now to go after the government with. Pretty amazing.
Are we heading down that's a future question. Let's stick with the positives. What's number 2?
Just the fact that they have said and acknowledged that the FBI and, the White House, by doing what they did from the bully pulpit, you have to remember when they talked about the disinformation dozen, and Jen Psaki was standing there and she said, if somebody's banned on one platform, they should be banned on all of the platforms. It shouldn't just be one. And we should be able to, take away Section 230 protections or, threaten antitrust legislation. And they had these CEOs in there and these heads of trust and safety berating them in Congress about how they weren't doing enough. That is now persona non grata. You can't do that anymore under this injunction, and probably ever again at the end of the case. And the government is fighting against that. And then the other thing that was really great is the FBI. They included the FBI in there by sheer happenstance that they have a badge. So they're in a position of authority. They've got 13, 14 people on a task force working to tell, Twitter or whoever what they should remove from their platforms, shielding it under the guise of foreign disinformation, shielding it under the guise of potential dangerous hate speech and all this other nonsense. And the court has basically said, well, you guys are the FBI. Of course they're going to act on your stuff. Even if it was only 50% of the requests you sent to censor Americans, that's 50% too many. So
are we in a position, let me try to get this as easy to understand and apply for our audience as possible. Are we in a position that if, like what happened with Alex Berenson, for example, are we in a position after this ruling that if a public official who has sworn an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution where you live publicly speaks out advocating your censorship, with this ruling, could I just turn around and sue them the very next day?
You can sue the government. Absolutely. And it's a very particular bar you have to hit, Steve. You have to prove that the government coerced or threatened a social media company to take action. And what you just mentioned doesn't always reach that bar, believe it or not. In this case,
but because of the Berenson case, because we have documentation that they specifically, the White House specifically went to Meta and asked for this, specifically went to Twitter and asked for this. So in other words, the court is making a distinction between if you're just making, Adam Schiff-like politically outlandish statements for whatever reason to get on MSNBC every night, and Tracy Beanz ought to be banned, Steve Deace ought to be banned, Ben Shapiro ought to be banned, Dan Bongino ought to be banned, that you're permitted to do that. That's political speech. But then if you actually commit an act within your public office to make such an event occur, that now is legally liable. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yes. 100%.
So apply this to Fauci then, and where he fits in, because he's the one they put under a deposition for 8 months. So how does he fit into all of this then?
He did.
Or for 8 hours, I should say. 8 hours.
It felt like 8 months.
Yes.
He didn't actually fit into it. The court ruled that there wasn't enough proof that's been presented so far to show that Fauci actually demanded or coerced anyone to do anything. Yeah, he had them, elevate his podcast episodes and what he said, but they haven't found that smoking gun as per the Fifth Circuit just yet on Anthony Fauci. So they rewrote this injunction that the original judge had put down to just include what they found warranted it. And it was interesting because they had an argument in the middle about the committee hearing where they actually had, or the weaponization committee that got the emails from Facebook under subpoena. They entered them into the docket in this case, and they were arguing with the government about whether or not they could actually look at those, because Facebook's perspective, believe it or not, backed up what the plaintiffs were saying. A lot of the time, Steve, these social media companies did not want to comply. They were beaten and badgered into compliance, and it was really super enlightening to see that.
So then why are some companies like Facebook and YouTube still walking this path on their own, even in light of everything that's now been exposed?
I'm so glad you said that. Another win from this was that the court actually said, what you've done so far, government, in influencing how people craft their terms and conditions and how people craft their content moderation policy has tainted the well forever. From now on forth, these social media companies are going to be tailoring their content moderation to meet what they think that you want. And that is a big no-no. So that's probably why you're seeing it. And I think it's ongoing. They're still having these conversations. They haven't stopped. And that's why the government is fighting to continue having censorship conversations with private companies, because they do not want the truth out there.
So if we're looking at the legislative branch's response to that, is the legislative response then, well, okay, if that well is permanently tainted, then we need to look at Section 230, and you guys are going to have to decide, are you publishers or platforms then at that point? If it's just forever tainted because of these acts, as the Fifth Circuit says, then maybe we need to look at that exception, and there is no middle ground now, and you have to decide, are you a public bulletin board where anybody can just come and post anything, okay, or are you publishers that you're moderating content?
Yes, that's ultimately where we'll probably end up. This is at the SCOTUS right now, by the way, on this little step right here. So we'll wait and see. There's an answer due by Missouri and Louisiana by Wednesday, tomorrow. But yeah, that's what they're going to have to eventually tackle that if they're not going to be free to do as they choose. And we'll get there. It's just going to be a slog. That law is so outdated and terrible. So it's going to be work. And Congress doesn't work very often, Steve. They don't do much. So we'll see.
I had noticed that. So before we let you go, what didn't I ask about that you think our audience needs to know about this ruling?
About the ruling in particular, you did a really good job actually covering all
right, then
of
maybe where it goes next then.
Everybody needs to understand this is the most important civil liberties case that we've had in decades. Hands down. It affects everyone, black, white, brown, Christian, Catholic, Muslim. It doesn't matter. If you're an American citizen, this case impacts you. And it's unraveling this massive web of government corruption through non-governmental organizations like the Atlantic Council, the Stanford Internet Observatory, and how they want to control what you say, whether people agree with you or not. And so it's a landmark case of the utmost importance, and that's probably where I'll end it.
All right. Excellent job. Tracy Beanz over at UncoverDC, UncoverDC.com. Phenomenal analysis, Tracy. Thank you very much for being with us here on The Blaze.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right, gentlemen, your thoughts on that breakdown?
I'm glad you took it to where I was going to go. How far ahead of the curve we were on this show before COVID even came along. I don't know the first time we put this narrative out there, but the platform versus publisher conversation, the Ma Bell conversation. What if they did this to you, and wouldn't let you have a landline? COVID and all the evil, nefarious players and all of that have given voice to, but was something that as a free people, a people who are genuinely citizens and not just consumerants and comfort seekers, they must solve this. Tracy is absolutely right. You must solve it no matter what strike, liberal, Democrat, whatever. Sooner or later, the hammer falls on you just for saying the wrong shibboleth if you do not take care of this.
Yeah, and it's incredible, even in this period of time that we find ourselves in, where we are surrounded seemingly on every front, that we do have apparently a new way to actually push back and fight for our actual rights. That doesn't really happen. Take stock of that. That doesn't actually happen very often anymore. And credit to, I think it was it Eric Schmidt? He's now the senator, but he was the attorney general in Missouri when they first launched this lawsuit. I don't even know if he knew how successful this was going to be, but it's been, and it's not even over yet. It's been nothing short of a success. And I really, really hope that somewhere, someone who was a direct target of the federal government in the way that Tracy just laid out, where it's using your lever of power, using your pedestal as an elected representative or an unelected member of the government, using your leverage, your power, pulling and prodding your pressure points at big tech. I hope somebody is made an example of after all of this is said and done.
Very well put there. Ultimately, if you guys notice, there's always a trend with the they that you asked about earlier, Todd. We're going to use unelected judges to issue edicts. And once they're issued, they could never be undone ever. They could never be disobeyed ever. And the only supreme word in our political system comes from the very people that we didn't directly vote for. We're going to create this massive bureaucracy, and that's the one that does a lot of these policies and administrative rules, non-governmental agencies, non-governmental organizations. Those have never been on a ballot. Nobody's ever voted for that. We're going to make and permit entities that good luck troubleshooting or calling when you've got a complaint, knowing who at Google to call, who at YouTube to call, who at Facebook to call or email, and they're going to be the primary conduits for disseminating information. Nobody ever has any accountability. Ever notice this? They always place power within the entities that are not accountable to us. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast, alongside Todd Erzin, Aaron McIntyre. I am Steve Deace. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox, which you can access by emailing the show, steve@stevedeace.com, DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. Follow me at Steve Deace Show on Twitter, Getter, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can find me on Truth Social at Real Steve Deace there. And once more, the last name, DEACE. Those of you that listen to the podcast, thank you so very much. Please, if you have yet to do so, leave us a 5-star review if you like us. Hit subscribe, or if you're on iTunes, follow, so that each and every new episode ends up in your feed every single day that we do one. And thank you to both of you that have done that or those of you that have done both of those things for us. And if you haven't yet and would consider doing that today, thank you to you too. Let's get to Fake News or Not, brought to you by My Patriot Supply. Do you get the feeling something unthinkable is going to happen soon? You know, we were just talking during the break. I was having a conversation with somebody that lives in our neighborhood recently, and we were commiserating how the values in our suburb for our homes have skyrocketed in the last 10 years. But because of the cost of mortgages and everything else right now, families like yours that want to make that next step and move into a neighborhood like ours, we couldn't sell our homes if we wanted to. Yet older people that want to retire, the kids are gone, maybe want to scale down, new families come in. There's the least amount of for sale signs. We've lived in the same neighborhood for 17 years. There were more for sale signs in this neighborhood during COVID than there has been this year. Even right now, where people are trying to get that last-minute home move in before winter strikes because nobody wants to move that time of year, nothing. Absolutely dead. Well, that just means be ready. That just everything might be okay. But just in case it's not, make sure you're prepared for the next time, oh, that could never happen here, actually happens here. Go to preparewithdace.com, save 25% on My Patriot Supplies 3-month emergency food kits. That's breakfast, lunch, dinner, even drinks and snacks. The full complement of the 2,000 plus calories that you and everyone in your household needs. They've got over 16 different types of meals inside, so you can mix and match for variety. It stays good for up to 25 years with proper storage, and they'll give you free shipping as well. 25% off your 3-month emergency food kits at My Patriot Supply, when you go to preparewithdace.com. Head over there now, preparewithdace.com. All right, Pop Culture Tuesday coming up at the bottom of the hour. I'm going to get a little personal, if you guys don't mind. But let's kick it old school on fake news or not. This is the way we used to roll in this segment. I have lined up the clips, man. I've lined up the clips on various topics, and you guys know the drill. Is this fake news or not? And you have to tell us why. Let's lead off with, he's just being a great dad.
Joe Biden did nothing, not even approximating improper, much less wrong or illegal.
It's wishful thinking. They're trying to create a scandal.
I think it's pretty clear, at least so far, there is nothing there.
House Republicans continue their search for any proof at all tying President Joe Biden to his son Hunter's business dealings.
Joe Biden had nothing to do with Hunter Biden's business dealings.
Because they want to dirty up Biden's name.
You know, Republicans have been trying to use Hunter Biden's behavior against the president.
Did not know about anything that Hunter Biden was doing.
Zena Biden was simply involved in his son's life in a personal capacity. Republicans from consistently trying to make this argument and create the illusion of some malfeasance being there.
Spoke to business associates of Hunter Biden to say hello, to have small talk, casual conversation.
Hunter Biden talked to his dad on the phone all the time. They talked basically every day. Sometimes Joe Biden would say hello to the people in the room if he popped in or on the phone or whatever.
It was all casual conversation, niceties, the weather.
They never discussed business. These were more of just cordial hello types of conversations. Business was never discussed on those calls, and that was more casual sort of check-ins, casual conversations.
President Biden might have said, hey, quit putting me on speakerphone. Are you having a business meeting? Like, what is that about? But do you hang up on your phone, on your side?
Beau Biden, Hunter's brother and President Biden's son, was very ill with cancer and then passed away. That, as the witness today testified, was what these conversations and these calls were about.
And we should put this in context. This is a time when Beau Biden, the president's other son, was ill and then dying and then passed away.
Very fraught and sad time for the Biden family, and we know how important family is to the president.
They're doing Donald Trump's bidding, going after Hunter Biden, trying to create a tie to the president.
This is a political move here. It is a politics thing, right? In as much as it's anything else. Fair?
Yeah, I think so. There does not appear to have been a direct business tie.
Because right now you don't see any conduct that's illegal, that there is regulation or law that's prohibiting it, even though it might be highly unethical.
I don't see high crimes and misdemeanors. I don't even see a low crime. I see a son who's using his father.
People with famous last names, using them for their own purposes. People in your families, they're ne'er-do-wells. This is as old as time.
Fake news or not?
I quote the prophet George Costanza. It's not a lie if you believe it. That is true news. You
believe these people believe everything they said?
Well, they believe it enough to say it without any shame.
So to be fair,
the news.
It's not gaslighting, it's demagoguery, and damn it, there's a difference. That's what you're saying?
I'm just saying that look at the earnestness, the joy, whatever mission they have. They really believe it. They just really need to believe it for the sake of psychological reasons, political reasons. And that's the news now, folks. So it's true news.
Aaron.
So I think it is fake news. It's fake news. I think all of those people, if this were the issue that would prompt the system to say, sayonara, Joe Biden, all of these same people would say, well, the stuff with his son really hurt him. You know, he probably bad judgment, blah, 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 blah. But here's the thing, though. They're not going to hang Joe Biden on that. It's very, very crucial when we talk about the system. Again, the they that we're talking about. The system wants to do things on its own terms.
Mm-hmm.
And going and accusing your faithful servant, Joe Biden, faithful dementia patient in Joe Biden,
faithful dementia
of basically peddling influence to help his son's business deals is not the way that's not their terms. So that's not going to happen. But I think all of these people, if that were to happen, would take the chip out of their brain, put the other one in. Joe Biden bad. That's what would happen.
I love the phrase, the system wants to do things on its own terms. You see this with like masks on planes. They don't want to wear masks on planes either. Most of their people don't. Most of them don't. But damn it, they're going to sue you to make sure that if and when those masks go away, it's going to be on their terms. They don't want to set a precedent that you get to tell them. You get to call the shots with them. Right. All right, clip number 2, humanitarian disaster.
On another matter, on the Biden administration's watch, America's southern border has descended into humanitarian disaster. And across the country, Democrats' open border policies have turned every state into a border state.
Did he just say the states are more boring now? Because I think he said the Democrats' immigration policies have turned every state into a more boring state. Is that what he said?
I can't understand anything that he's saying.
I'm sorry, I don't speak post-stroke fluently, but I believe that I would actually think, I mean, there's a lot of problems with, having an open border, but given, the surprise a minute when you open the box of what comes through it, it's anything but boring. Or was he saying border state?
I suppose we should have talked about this before some of these clips are longer, so if you want to keep, I'm just going to keep them running.
I think where it comes to
just tell me if you want me to.
Glitch, as Emerald Robinson has brilliantly nicknamed him. I think we've seen enough. Aaron, fake news or not?
That's fake news. The dude was he Senate Majority Leader or not at one point? Or multiple points?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's fake news.
Shut up. I'm so sick. And the people who make the memes about how Cocaine Mitch, love him or hate him, he's saved us from a bunch of insane crap. I think insane crap is sending billions of dollars to Ukraine, which he thinks we're not doing enough of or fast enough. I'm just tired of this guy. He's been there. You talked hard.
Yeah, that's why it's fake news on this particular topic, because he doesn't plan on doing a damn thing about what he's talking about, or because that's just AI glitch, because that was actually an improvement on what we've seen from Glitch recently. So I don't even know that was him.
It's a good thing they don't have something like a funding fight or something coming up where, he could make demands before signing on to keeping the government going that try to use that as leverage to, demand the White House actually act on what's happening at the southern border, as he just clearly demonstrated with his very passionate concern. Next clip, a gift to Putin.
September 30th is only 12 days away. If bipartisanship is allowed to work, we can avoid a government shutdown before then. Sadly, things in the House are not off to a good start. Last night, House GOP members released what they called a deal for a CR, but in reality reads like a hard right screed. Instead of working with Democrats to keep government open, House Republicans want to cut virtually all non-defense spending by a devastating 8%. 8%. 8% cuts to law enforcement, cancer research, and other critical priorities. Not one penny is dedicated to the president's disaster relief request, despite the anguish in so many states. No health extenders are included. No attempt to reauthorize the FAA. And with no Ukraine funding, the proposal is an insult to Ukraine and a gift to Putin.
We didn't mean to laugh. I don't think we knew our mics were still on. So
sorry. Yeah, I also probably should have told you beforehand. I'm leaving your mics on.
All right. So that was not a laugh track. That was all of our combined or organic responses to 8%.
Did you see what he tweeted the other day? Thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act. Thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, we've got $70 million to plant trees. A devastating 8%.
Who was more alive, Glitch or Schumer?
Oh, Schumer.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
Because I got to tell you, Schumer didn't sound much more. I mean, is there an age where you've just done this for the regime on either side so many times that you've read these scripts so many? And,
well, that's why this is true.
And if you can believe it, everything we know, life as you know it, the astral plane on which we walk, the mortal coil on which we exist, will absolutely cease to exist in a moment's notice if we get this massive cut of 8%. I mean, that's what it was like. Dude, we just saw with Schumer and Glitch back to back. That ain't Hulk Hogan and Randy Macho Man Savage back to back with Mean Gene Okerlund. All right. I mean that is not that's not pro wrestling. We're not even doing that anymore. It's like they've even given up on. It's like the regime won't even give us the pro wrestling anymore. We don't even get the show anymore. We don't even get the presentation anymore. Nobody gets under the sun lamps and gets all lathered up. Oh,
they don't have to.
We don't even get that. It's just monotone reading of talking points now.
Because back then, Steve, I was newly married, maybe had some kids. When was the first shutdown? Like 2005?
Right after 95? No, in this era, because you're thinking of 95 with Clinton was the first one. Was the very first time they had a shutdown. And the world was going to end with that.
Yes, okay, right? So it goes back that far. But see, that's when I would have said fake news to that. There had to be the show back then because this is true news now.
Yeah.
This is just talking points. You're going to react this way. We're all on the same page here. He doesn't have to argue.
Like imagine now before WrestleMania, the two main wrestlers come out. I am going to do an Irish whip and then a leg drop.
Yes, that's what you saw.
And then he will respond by coming off of the top rope, and it will be an exhilarating affair, and many people will cheer. That's the vamping we get now. We don't even get the vamping. Our vamping sucks even now. So you think it's fake news?
No, that's why I think it's true news.
It's true news.
Aaron, you agree?
Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell are gifts to Putin. Anything, basically, at this point, anything short of actually opening up United States gas and drilling capability, everything else is a gift to Putin.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I present for you in this fourth clip a Fox News doctor.
The other thing is that Ron DeSantis has said that Floridians under the age of 65 should skip getting the newly approved COVID vaccine, says that the FDA and CDC use healthy Floridians as guinea pigs for new booster shots that have not been proven to be safe or effective. What say you?
I think he's a governor. And I think he did a great job at the beginning of the pandemic with nursing homes, with keeping businesses open, with keeping schools open. Hooray for that. He should not be weighing in on vaccines. This particular vaccine is quite safe. It's a tiny bit different than the previous one. It's been looked at. Yes, the pharmaceutical companies should be more transparent. Yes, I'm very confident in this vaccine. But let me tell you where this vaccine decision should be made. Not at a governor pulpit, but in a doctor's office. It shouldn't be vilified. Choice, Dana, doesn't mean denigrating something. How about we bring it to the doctor and the patient? I say to the patient, when did you have COVID last? I don't want you to have this vaccine. You just had COVID. You had a bad reaction to the last vaccine. I don't want you to have that. I make my recommendations and the patient decides. Over the age of 65 for sure is the high-risk group, but I want to be able to do it on a one-on-one basis.
Yeah, but he's talking about people under the age of 65.
Aaron, and don't you love that clip comes from the show that Dana Perino was on, where 2 years ago she gave us training kids that we should be sympathetic for?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, Aaron, fake news or not?
I gotta look up the shampoo that I use. Grandfather shampoo. Grandpa's Tar, I think. No, Grandpa's Soap Company. Or Selsun Blue, I would recommend for the good doctor there. Did you see that?
So simple. Oh, maybe we'll go back to this format more often. All right. Maybe we should have been doing this like we have always done it for all this time.
True news. I mean, the doctor with very bad dandruff and poor Fox News couldn't bother to get one of those lint roller things to clean it off. True news. He's as qualified as they come when it comes to injecting things into your own body.
Todd.
Screw you, Doc.
Okay. All right. Clip 5. Gas prices are affordable.
We are seeing lower inflation, which is why I'm wondering how you're thinking about the gas price move. Big jump in the month of August. Crude is back above $90 per barrel. The Saudis are extending the production cuts through the end of the year. Are you looking at taking any action on this front?
Well, the president wants to make sure that gas prices remain affordable for Americans. Americans care a great deal about the price of gas.
Speaking of the olds,
that clip is incredible.
They're all
that clip though. Oil is over $90 a barrel. Gas prices have soared. Does the president have any answers for that? He just wants to make sure gas prices stay affordable.
They're all She's Gollum. That's Gollum right there.
So is this country.
Yes.
Yeah. So is this country.
This is why this
It was once Schmeagol. It once had a gleam in its eye. It did. But now it just hunts after its own idolatries to the point that it just rots the people from the inside out.
The true news after all these clips is we should be having a January 6th every single day to throw this damn ring back in the fire of Mount Doom from whence it came.
Speaking of knocks at the door tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., Todd, I don't know what you do with that. I don't. That's my answer.
I just want everybody to know that what Todd means by that is when you are politely invited by security at the Capitol compound to walk into the establishments that you subsidize and own as a taxpayer, that you take them up on that offer and you walk in those buildings freely and openly and take pictures. Go ahead, Aaron.
Nailed it.
Yes.
No, Janet Yellen is the picture in distilled form of the expert class. She has no damn business having her fingerprints on the economy, on our money supply, on our monetary policy.
She's literally embalmed.
Yes.
She kept nodding her head, but I think it's just because her neck will no longer support the weight anymore.
I mean, is this segment called Geriatrics on Parade? Is that what she...
It's what we are, guys. Yeah. This is where we are. It's where we are. And I know I get heat every time I point it out. This generation will not go. They won't. They just won't. Let's talk about something different. New questions.
Could a new account of the assassination of John F. Kennedy 60 years later change our understanding of what happened that day in Dealey Plaza? Paul Landis, a Secret Service agent assigned to Jacqueline Kennedy, who was just feet away from the president that day, has broken his silence. In an excerpt from his upcoming book, The Final Witness, published next month, Landis, who is now 88, shares a new account of that day that some say upends the long-held single bullet theory. In its final report, the Warren Commission decided that a single bullet fired that day, recovered nearly intact, had struck the president from behind, exited from the front of his throat, and went on to hit Texas then-Governor John Connally in multiple places. Skeptics who thought it unlikely that a single bullet could do all of that and still be in such good condition called it the magic bullet theory. Part of the reason investigators came to that conclusion was a bullet found on a stretcher believed to have been held or holding John Connally at the Parkland Memorial Hospital. It was assumed that it had exited Connally's body during efforts to save his life. Landis now disputes that. He says that after the motorcade arrived at the hospital, he had found that bullet lodged in the back of the seat behind where Jacqueline Kennedy was sitting in the presidential limousine. He says in an impetuous moment, he grabbed it to thwart the press and souvenir hunters. In the chaos after he entered the hospital, he says that he ended up putting it on the president's stretcher next to his feet. He told this to Jake Tapper.
You get it.
Fake news or not, Todd?
Do you remember when this, was this the gold standard of conspiracy theory?
No, it's just kind of a plucky story.
Yeah, I know. Now I can't even be bothered. I'm like, don't even bring this to me, Deace. What are you doing?
Like, literally, you can give me a sample of JFK's brain matter, and I'm like, whatever. Where are the aliens? Right. That's where we are. I mean, I spent a ton of time as a youth reading about this story, following it. I saw the JFK Oliver Stone movie in the theaters 3 times. It's a 3.5-hour movie. I got to spend an hour, or actually a few hours, in January with RFK Jr. Privately, even listening to him talk about what went on that day and what he really and truly believes happens. And we've got Schumer and Glitch, right? We have a problem at it's more boring. That's McConnell. I would love the luxury of embracing this conspiracy theory
and
again.
All of those incumbents were re-elected.
They all were there that day. In fact, in Dealey Plaza, they were all there. Aaron.
True news. It's just, go back to the epistemological issues, let's put it that way, that we have in our society. It's like, how would we know, from what institution, from what source would we absolutely know, okay, that person is telling the truth? Because the truth in the United States, year of our Lord 2023, has been transgendered. We now have trans truth, that, everybody has their own thing. So, sure. It's true news, alternate theory of what happened in the JFK assassination.
Let's talk next about the new Republican Party.
So, Vivek, when you look at where you are, where DeSantis is, you guys are kind of neck and neck, and then you got Trump. Altogether, you all are about 84% of the Republican electorate. So I was dying laughing this week when Romney's up there, God bless him, and he's talking about how he's retiring. And he's saying, well, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, when the party returns to, its old base, its old clear principles, then there'll be room for people like me. You guys are 84% of the party. That's a populist, more, America-focused party.
So I do think the America First movement is the new Republican Party.
The old guard is gone, right?
The old guard is gone. Yeah. And in fact, much of the Democratic Party is, I think, now taking some chapter and verse out of that old school Republican Party when it comes to foreign policy and other issues.
Fake news or not, Aaron?
Fake news. It's just a new establishment. It didn't replace the old one. It's just a new establishment. We just went through the geriatrics on parade here. Ditch McConnell, Glitch McConnell. Nothing fundamentally has changed. If the America First were the new Republican Party, we would actually be serious about a government shutdown and an actual budget fight, but we're not, because it fundamentally hasn't changed. It's just America First, MAGA, whatever you want to call it. It's just a new establishment. And now we're back. I listened to these shows when you were first went national, Steve. We're at the same
conversation
place.
Same
Except
conversation.
Now we have another establishment to fight back against.
Just transfer out Christian conservative for MAGA, transfer out Tea Party for MAGA. Same thing, or populist. Well, this is where the base is at. Okay, look at who the base then turns around and votes for in almost every election. How many MAGA, not Trump people, how many America First people, there's 48 Republican senators right now? How many of them would you say are America First? By any measure? 5.
Two.
Over under is 5.
Under.
So Lee, Cruz, Rand.
Let's not do this.
Is that like maybe Tuberville? Is that it? Is that it?
Under.
You think it's under 5? Okay.
I would have put Tom Cotton, but he has a fetish for Ukraine now.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Rubio also would be a fetishist for global conquest. Yeah. So, I mean, okay. Todd, I guess we now know where you are, right?
Utterly fake news.
Okay. Last clip. He's just built differently.
I just want to hear from you on this. I want to know what's in your head. When you go to bed at night, do you worry about going to jail?
No, I don't really. I don't even think about it. I'm built a little differently, I guess, because I have had people come up to me and say, how do you do it, sir? How do you do it? I don't even think about it.
He doesn't even think about it, Todd.
I think that's pretty true news. I don't think he thinks about it in the way we think he should be thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of Donald Trump's. That's what scared everybody early on about Donald Trump on all sides of everything, because he just would not. Early on, they had to figure out a new way to manipulate him. The old ways of manipulation didn't quite work. I think this is more or less true.
Okay. Aaron, what do you think?
What do you think goes on in Donald Trump's head when he goes to bed at night? Don't answer that. Jail's thinking about you. And that's what I would say. Jail is thinking about you regardless of whether or not you're thinking about it. However, genuinely, I don't think he worries about it. If he worried about it, I don't think he would be playing golf. I don't think he would still be doing some of the things that were, he would be a wreck if he actually was thinking about it every night. So,
in fairness, look at he's kind of a dime a dozen also. Most parents aren't afraid of their kids being trans by the teachers, even though they're being transed right then. I mean, there's just an immunity to reality itself these days.
I absolutely think that's true news. I absolutely believe Donald Trump does not think at all about accountability whatsoever on any level. 100%. On any level. On any front, personal, political. I don't believe that on a daily basis facing accountability for his actions is on the mental docket at all.
Regardless of whether that accountability is
deserved or not. Yeah. I don't, whether it's from his creator, whether it's from the people, whether it's from competitors, I just don't think he lives in a world that accountability is a functional component of that existence.
Good times.
All right. Pop Culture Tuesday is next. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show. Don't forget about our friends over at Sweat Block. If you suffer from over-sweating, whether it's the heat is on, like literally outdoors, or it's just when you feel the heat is on you, a first date, a job interview, public speaking, public singing, and the adrenaline just gets going. And you're like, oh man, I wish I could do something about this. Now you can get the antiperspirant wipes from our friends at Sweat Block. You can also get their outstanding deodorant stick. They've even got deodorant lotions that work really well, smell great, feel great on your skin. Those are my favorite product that they have. And you get 20% off today when you go for those products or all of them or any of them at sweatblock.com. Use the promo code DACE to get that discount. Promo code DACE to get that 20% off when you go to sweatblock.com. Again, go to sweatblock.com. Use the promo code DACE to get 20% off at sweatblock.com. All right, Pop Culture Tuesday. I want to address something a little personal.
Uh-oh.
All right. This is where we look at the intersection between what's happening in pop culture and how that clashes with the good, the true, and the beautiful that we're trying to conserve. Okay? And I want to ask you guys a simple question. Okay? So my Detroit Lions beat the Kansas City Chiefs on opening night.
I don't know if I'm pointing it at him or myself, but I'm brandishing it.
This weekend, I'm not even a fan of the Wolverines or the Lions. I know where this is going. I had to mute Michigan podcast again.
That's my sports burner account.
I couldn't stand it.
Well,
Okay, so now you know why I wanted to have this conversation. All right, I'm asking you guys to check me. Okay,
shoot him.
I didn't think about shooting. I didn't ask you to do that. I asked you to check me. All right. All right. So all this hype with the Lions, and this is my 40th year. I've been a Lions fan now for 40 years, since I was 10 years old. We moved to Michigan in November of 1983, and I'd fallen in love in Florida with football while we were living in Florida. And I turned it on very first week that we lived there, man, and I'm watching Billy Sims run wild, and I'm like, I can do this, you know? And Lions win the division and lose a heartbreaking playoff game to the 49ers. Eddie Murray missed a very makeable kick. Monty Clark, the coach, is on the sidelines on his knees praying, and Eddie Murray misses the kick. But you're 10 years old, and you're thinking, we're going to be here forever, right? And then I'm watching a game the next year, I think it's against the Cincinnati Bengals, and Billy Sims blows out his knee and never plays in the NFL again. And that was my real formal introduction into what I was getting myself into. This is a franchise that has one playoff win since 1957. My mom was born January of 1958. The Lions got that playoff win in the NFL championship game on December 28, 1957. So 2 weeks before my mom was born was the last time the Lions won a championship. They have one playoff game since then. It was my senior year in high school, 1991. We went to the playoffs 5 times with Barry Sanders, won no games. We had one game against you guys. We played in like minus 30-degree temps. Remember this?
Sure.
And you're literally on a frozen tundra. You have maybe the greatest running back of all time. How about we give him the ball like 10 times the whole game? Let's see what happens. That was a great strategy. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
We've done all this karma, cosmic stuff. It's literally the House of Usher with the Lions. Literally, it is the House of Usher. Okay? But a new coach comes in. But this one is different than the others that have come in. He is fully aware of that. He was even on the 0-16 team that the Lions had, first team that ever happened to in NFL history. He fully embraces it. I'm taking this on head on. I want this job. I want to go after this culture. I want to take it on. I want to wrestle it down. All right? And it looks like they're on the right path. They're doing something I've never seen them do in 40 years. They have a plan. Okay? But they get all this offseason hype after ending the Aaron Rodgers era in Green Bay. Then they have this star receiver who decides that he was not aware that I could not get on a gambling app and place bets from the team facility. Okay? And then you just think, all right, immature. Wouldn't be the first wide receiver to be immature in the NFL. Fair, we've seen plenty of that over the years. Okay. Maybe it's just a second year immature. Fine, we'll move on. All right. Training camp goes well. Opening night, beat the Super Bowl champs. And so the next 10 days before week 2, it's Detroit Lions Woodstock, man. I mean, it's a festival of support and kind words. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, our prized free agent, who just went to the Super Bowl with the Eagles, multiple times Pro Bowler. He's added like some salt, some juice to the Lions defense, telling people, you know what, we just shut down Pat Mahomes. We're the villains of the NFL. Wear your ski masks. Taking on the Seattle. Big revenge game. Seattle came in and won that game last year, and that's what kept us out of the playoffs because they had the tiebreaker on us. Seattle's down both of its offensive tackles, and we've got one of the best edge rushers in the league in Aiden Hutchinson, who had 9 quarterback pressures against Pat Mahomes. I mean, they're talking about breaking the record for decibel levels at Ford Field and everything. And the Lions lose. Not only do they lose, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, torn pectoral muscle, probably never playing for the Lions ever again. He was on a 1-year contract. He'll go somewhere else. Top running back gets hurt. He's out the next few weeks. Left tackle hurt. And they just... And a coach who went for it earlier in the game on 4th and 3 from the 50 gets the ball in enemy territory in the final minute to try to win it in regulation and plays for overtime mysteriously. And I looked at all of this and I just couldn't resist. It was just same old Lions to me. I've seen this a million times. I mean, I think the season is over like right now. Like I think it's over. Completely, I think it's over. Okay.
We're back, baby.
And
gonna put that right there. Feeling really good about things right now, where things are at. Back on terra firma. Nice.
Well, then I guess I know which side of this you're going to come down. All right. Did I overreact? Is my question.
I told you you were overreacting.
Okay. No, I meant to what happened on Sunday. Did I overreact?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, no.
Well,
so you guys can't even agree on that.
My buddy, who is a huge fan of Michigan podcast, shares the same sports allegiances. He texted me and he's like, "Man, I had to unfollow Michigan podcast. This is just ridiculous. I had to mute it."
I wish I knew what was going on. I'd be.
Sky is falling.
I was just providing some critical commentary that may or may not have been existential in nature.
This is the funny thing about you in your sports fandom. Your craving of truth and certainty and all of that.
And there's an oblong ball involved.
It has no place in sports. Yet this is why you do your analysis, your own spreadsheets and everything like that. Because the one thing that is the most really enjoyable about fun is that you actually have to go play the games and but that level, and somehow it's been balanced out in the fact that you've got the chaos of the Lions and the glory and the pageantry of the Wolverines. Mm-hmm. But like even when it came with the best game of the Harbaugh era, you did not watch.
I was convinced they would never beat Ohio State again. I couldn't go through the humiliation ever again. I went and saw King Kong versus Godzilla and DVR'd it. Yeah,
that was more worth watching than any, because this is. You're always trying to run. You thought you found the certainty. You so crave. It's sports. The best thing about the best games ever are the things where certainty was taken and had its head ripped off by a team that had no. It's a great speech in Miracle. I don't know how real the speech actually is, but he says if we play 9 out of 10 times, they probably win 9, but not today. That's why it's incredible. That's why Hoosiers is incredible. That's why the NCAA basketball tournament is incredible. If you want to slay this dragon once and for all, you just gotta ride this train, man. We're back. We got a shot now. This is great.
So you prove your own point about seeking uncertainty in a realm where there isn't any certainty. And as Aaron points out, it's a sport with an oblong ball, in that you are convinced that I am reacting given the true energy around that franchise, calling for it to be relocated, which I have done as a fan for the last 10 years, that they need to leave the city. It's just too much of a toxic relationship between the Lions and the city of Detroit. Just cannot work. It's got to be, that marriage is doomed. See, you now think that I am actually... I'm in context again. Like I'm actually seeing things clearly again with that reaction.
Yeah.
Okay, Aaron, you think I'm completely overreacting?
Yes.
So you guys don't even agree.
Michigan Wolverines as well.
I mean, they played like crap.
This guy is not falling
against Bowling Green. I mean, they look like garbage, hot freaking garbage. Any other team on our schedule the rest of the year would have beaten us Saturday night for sure.
I think Aaron's right. And when I've seen you, like yesterday or last year during the Illinois game, like when you personalize it, then it's
just
insane.
Beyond obnoxious.
It's like you realize you're not on the team. They don't know you at all there. But in terms of the Lions story, it's a great, amazing sports story. It doesn't make any sense. Why do they have this? But other people just trip into wins almost accidentally. The Bengals, for goodness sakes, do. Why not the Lions? But it's an amazing sports story. You just happen to be in the middle of it as a fan. But yeah, I mean, you shouldn't personalize the good or the bad of any of this. I mean, because you have nothing to do with it.
They will get better as the season goes on. That's how it went last season.
Won't.
Or they won't, but they will get better as the season goes on.
But what if the season's already over?
Oh man!
15 more games.
All right, I want to address something that you just said in a minute. First, though,
I love how you say your sports is your respite. Sure. Sure.
We all have our.
It's your curse.
We all have our ways of relaxing. This is mine. I know it doesn't look a lot like relaxation.
I'm relaxed.
But I am feeling very relaxed at the moment.
I am joyous.
Oh, folks, during the recent BRICS summit in South Africa, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa formally agreed to use their local currencies instead of the U.S. dollar. It's the first shoe to fall. As demand for the dollar weakens, so does the buying power of the dollars we have. This is why Birch Gold Group is busier than ever. Investors and savers are looking to harness the power of physical gold held in a tax-sheltered IRA. Text Steve to 989-898 for your free info kit on gold. And with thousands of happy customers, an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, and countless 5-star reviews, you can count on Birch Gold to help you navigate transitioning an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. As the U.S. dollar continues to receive pressure from foreign countries, digital currencies, and central banks, arm yourselves with information on how to protect your savings. Just text Steve to 989-898 to claim your free info kit now. Text Steve to 989-898. Okay. When you say they don't know me and I'm not involved, I want to challenge that phrase.
Yes! Yes! We are so back! Woo!
I knew what your reaction was going to be. I almost couldn't get it out of.
Oh, you want to be really depressed? Did you know J.J. McCarthy is a simp for Ukraine?
Does he have a Ukraine flag in his bio?
No, he was warmed up the other game with the Ukrainian coat of arms, wearing a T-shirt.
You're kidding me?
Nope. I can pull up a picture.
And then he went out and had the worst game of his entire career.
It wasn't the Bowling Green game. It was the one before that.
Oh, okay. Well, he played great that other game, so maybe I should be wearing a Ukrainian coat of arms. But
I'm sure it's coming.
All right, there was a movie that came out in 1983 called Tiger Town with Roy Scheider.
Never heard of it.
And it was, the Tigers were on their way up under Sparky Anderson. They were going to win. They ended up winning the World Series the next year. And it's about a kid. It was one of the, when they made real TV movies back in the day, it was about a kid. Roy Scheider plays like the star player for the Tigers, and he's in a bad slump.
Really?
And it's this kid that when he watched the games, Roy Scheider played well and broke his hitting streak. And there's like a connection between the two when he watched the games. And I watched that movie as a kid, and it had quite the impression on me. Okay. To the point that well into my adult years, I mean, Amy will tell you when we were first married, if she went to go grab something for lunch and Michigan played poorly while she was gone.
You've said this before.
She had to stay. She couldn't move. If Michigan played well, I'd tell her, hey, go back out. Like if on defense, if I missed a third down stop and we got the stop, I would turn the channel on for the rest of the third downs. I'm just pathetic, and I'm going to stop now.
You realize we're recording? Like, this is out there, going live? You have a show? Your name is behind you? Are you aware of any of this?
Every man that's thinking about it, emailing me today, your show really inspires me. They just stopped that email. They just stopped it right this minute. That's the good news. My inbox is going to be a lot less full here today. I finally got over that like years ago. But I mean, I was almost 30 years old. That's how long it took.
When we're out in public, the people come up to me. You guys saved us during COVID. I came back to my faith because of you. This one might start coming up in conversations, this show right here.
Yes. I mean, this is what being a fan of such a broken team does this kind of stuff to you, though. I mean, I've seen things. I've seen some things. And you'll never, you were there for one of them, Todd.
Yeah, right? We were sitting
right
over
when we
there.
did the old nighttime show for Salem. Yes. Our two teams were playing on Monday Night Football, and the Lions dominated the whole game, and Aaron Rodgers led a great comeback. All right, but then, I looked at you, and I wasn't joking. It wasn't a negative, whiny fan voice. I looked at you, and I said, I guarantee you.
Yeah.
that Aaron Rodgers is going to connect on this Hail Mary on the very next play.
Oh,
and I just said
yes, I know.
that cold-blooded analysis.
And it happened.
And we sat here in the office, and what did we watch take place the very next play?
Yeah, I know. We've watched 2 games like that here. The other one was when I don't know who they were playing. It wasn't the Packers, but you literally fumbled like on the 1-inch line.
Yes, I predicted that was going to happen. Yeah.
So, I believe in the magic. I'm converted. I'm just trying to remind you of your roots.
I just want to
You're
say,
back.
as a Chiefs fan, if it's 3rd and 17, I routinely say they got this. And they usually do.
Oh, that's just the last indignity.
Have you ever thought about being a technical producer for BlazeTV? John 3:17.